Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And yes, I'm here. I know I said I wouldn't be, but the casting call time for Sherwood has been moved back from 8:30 this morning to 2 o'clock this afternoon. So I've got a few hours. So I thought, well, I've definitely used the time productively, get a couple of videos up and out, and before I have to leave for them. So probably only get maybe 2 or 3 done to this morning, but that should be it. But of course, I've got to start on the big one. The big one, of course, being Nicola Sturgeon's speech. Now, we watched this, and I thought it was a bit of the same old, but there were a couple of little incidents that I liked. One, of course, was her admittance that the state of discourse in the Scottish Parliament has fallen substantially, and she took the blame for that. Well, of course she should do. She was the most divisive character. She would brook no argument. And of course everything then becomes polarised. And that of course means that when you get polarisation, there can be no meeting in the middle. And she's admitted that was her fault. We all know that's her fault. But the other thing was, or the second thing I'd like to talk about, is that she is admitting that it is unlikely that an all-in-one, sort of independent Scotland is ever going to happen. In any near future at all. So what she's suggesting is that salami slicing of a bit of power here, right there, an indication that they can do something else here, and basically salami slice their way to independence, which is something that you need to be aware of, because with everything you give them, it means there's less to hold back. And give a mouse a biscuit, and it'll ask for a glass of milk. So, don't give any more powers, and indeed start salami slicing them back, since the powers they got seem to be being misused so very much. But the last bit, there's one particular bit, it's not the last bit, but we're going to talk about the speech in a minute, but there's one particular thing I want to highlight on, because it did make me laugh. Now I'm just going to cut to that here, and it's Nicola Sturgeon rounding off her speech, and Annabel Ewing. She makes a bit of a gaffe. So I'll just play this reel now for you. Here goes.
And finally, presiding officer, disagreement and robust debate isn't just the essence of democracy. It's part of what makes us human. But the dynamic that it creates is not fixed.
First Minister, you will need to conclude. I'm sorry, Nicola Sturgeon, you will need to conclude.
And stalemate, or can we use the creative tension to drive improvement for all? I hope that in this term we see more of the latter than the former, and I look forward to playing my part in it.
Thank you, Ms Sturgeon.
I suppose that gaffe is allowable. She was First Minister for so long, but Annabel, Fergus will be laughing at you. He will have that one at the next time you meet. Anyway, we will have a look now at this piece. It's in the Daily Record. It's as good as any piece is supposed to pick up on. Just basically talking about her speech. It wasn't the firebrand speech that we were going to expect, but it was very. I tell you what was odd was that Humza Yousaf was conspicuous by his absence. It's strange how he wasn't there to hear his old mentor, his leaderine, utter her first words, effectively her maiden speech as a backbencher. And so it was odd that he was missing. Was it deliberate? Did he have pre-plans? Or was he ashamed of what he'd done? We'll see in the next video perhaps, or one after that, whichever way around these things come out, that he is in deep trouble. So maybe that's why he wasn't there. He didn't want to sort of tarnish her. Who knows? But anyway, we'll take a look at this article, see what's going on, and see what the effect of this speech had. Very little, actually, but we'll look. Here goes. So, Nicola Sturgeon calls for more powers for Scottish Parliament after the independence plan hits the buffers. The former First Minister was making her first speech at the Scottish Parliament since standing down as SNP leader earlier this year. It wasn't an overly packed house. Let's put it this way. I thought it would be busier than it was. There was a lot of space. Maybe she's losing her mojo, her attractiveness, if you will, for people to come and listen to what she's saying. Maybe what she's saying is becoming increasingly irrelevant. I think that's definitely true. Anyway, Nicola Sturgeon has called for more powers to be devolved to the Scottish Parliament after her independence plans hits the buffers. The former First Minister said today her belief in ending the Union, this is yesterday obviously, but her belief in ending the Union would not stop her arguing for incremental change on the way. That is her admittance that independence cannot come as a single unitary thing, and it has to be salami sliced in, a little bit here, a little bit there, and eventually, who knows, it may just collapse in on itself, and you get it. Of course, and that must be resisted. You see the damage they've done with the powers they have already. The ex-SNP leader challenged opposition parties not to close their minds to additional powers being given to Holyrood to help tackle the challenges the country faces. Most of those challenges, of course, having been created by the SNP itself. And it was a marked change in tone from a previous speech made while still First Minister in June 22, when she boldly called for a second referendum on independence to take place on October the 19th this year. And October the 19th is fast approaching, and there is no sign of a referendum. And of course there can't be. But those plans were struck down by the UK Supreme Court last December after judges ruled the MSPs did not have the required powers to call such a vote, and hopefully never will. Sturgeon then stunned the political world in February when she announced her sudden resignation after 8 years in the job, after being tipped off about the police investigation. It doesn't say there. Making her first speech at Holyrood since becoming a backbencher, she said she accepted my share of responsibility for the state of our political discourse. I mentioned that at the front end. You've destroyed it with your extremism. Extremism creates division. Division creates disharmony, disunity, and the inability to meet in the middle to find consensus at any point. And you've created that through your hate-filled rhetoric. Sturgeon added, if anything, that makes me more determined to play a part in trying to change it. Polarisation in politics is much maligned. It is the paralysis of action it results in that should worry us most. But you are the one who polarised Scotland. You personally, your rhetoric, your speeches, your attitude. You have destroyed politics in Scotland. You cannot now sit there and worry about what's happened and why is it so awful when you're the one who's made it awful. Turning to independence, she continued, I want this parliament to be independent and I believe it soon will be. Then you believe in pixies, because it won't soon will be at all. But that will never stop me arguing for incremental change along the way. And likewise, those who oppose independence shouldn't close their minds to new powers that will allow us to better tackle the challenges we face in here and now. I believe a lot of people are looking to actually end the Scottish Parliament. It's a very expensive experiment, costing an arm and a leg to every Scots person there is because of the increase in taxes and the destruction of rights and freedoms. It comes as Labour has repeatedly refused to commit to devolving more powers to Holyrood if it takes power at Westminster next year. Most likely to do so, isn't it? The party has variously ruled out handing MSPs powers over employment law and benefits, and SNP members are currently split on how best to advance the cause for independence following last year's Supreme Court ruling. Well, they're always going to be split because none of them know what they're talking about or what they're doing. Humza Yousaf, who succeeded Sturgeon as First Minister, previously said there was no shortcut or wheeze to achieving Scottish independence. Well, he's got that right. It isn't going to happen. He said if a party won a majority of seats north of the border, he would press the UK government for powers to hold a second referendum, which, of course, they would then lose. Because there's, 55% of SNP's own voters don't want full independence. So it's a non-starter. It's an absolute non-starter. Anyway, I shall round off there. I shall come up and we shall really quite, I suppose, laugh at her. She's no longer the tour de force, is she? She's now just a has-been politician in the twilight of her career. Coming up. So there we go. It was not the bravura performance we'd come to expect. There was no standing ovation. There was no lauding of the mighty, wise and wonderful Nicola Sturgeon. She got a little polite smattering of applause and then business moved on. Thank you, Nicola. It was done. Now, next. Who's next? What's never? She's no longer important. That's the great thing, isn't it? She's no longer important. And after the end of that speech, she must realise it. She thought that she'd be talking to a packed house, everyone turning up to hear what she wanted to say. And it certainly wasn't the case. How very sad. But to still be called First Minister must have pleased her no end. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. This is a surprise edition, as I say. Wasn't expecting to make any today. But thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have, do please hit the subscribe button. We're moving on nicely. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. And remember, if this can happen to Nicola Sturgeon, it can certainly happen to any of the others. Bye.